When I filmed this video, I was using my cordless microphone, but it did work properly. The sound was muffled and it was hard to understand what I was saying. So I decided to record a narration instead to avoid the bad audio. It's the first week of October and I finally got around to cleaning up my vegetable garden. I started with the sweet potatoes. I was excited to dig up the roots, but first I had to clear out the vines. This year was a letdown for harvesting young sweet potato leaves. Who wants to eat leaves that insects have chewed up? The leaves were full of holes, and I think grasshoppers were to blame. I've seen tons of them this year. Since the sweet potatoes were planted in an 18 by 18 raised planter, I tried to train the vines to climb up the trellis. They're meant to sprawl on the ground, but it would have been messy if I let them, which is why I use a trellis. Now that I'm ready to dig up the roots, I had to remove the trellis from the planter. It'll be easier to dig without anything in the way. I started digging for the roots. So far all I was finding was very skinny ones, not even worth digging up. Naturally, I was disappointed and thought I wouldn't find any roots worth cooking. But as I kept digging, I finally found some decent ones. They weren't as big as I had hoped, but so promising. The problem was, I didn't know how deep the root went. I couldn't pull it out without possibly damaging or breaking it in half. Not sure what to do, I left that root for now and focused on looking for easier ones to dig up. I found more roots, but they were hard to dig up, so I went back to the first one and found a smaller root next to it that was easier to pull out. After that, I was able to pull the bigger root without breaking it. I kept finding more roots, but they were just as hard to dig up or pull out. As I was working on digging the big one, it managed to loosen the others beside it, and I was able to pull out two decent-sized sweet potato roots. It was exciting to find a big root, so I kept digging, shaking and pulling until it finally came out. But it left part of itself in the ground, so I had to keep digging to find it. It was tougher and deeper than I expected, but I managed to get it out. I also found some roots while I was digging, but they weren't as big. I moved to another part of the vegetable garden to dig up two more 18 by 18 raised planters of sweet potatoes. These were tricky because the trellis was a permanent part of the planters, so I had to work around it. Just like the first one, I had to remove the vines before I could start digging. I spent a lot of time on these two planters. The soil in the planter was hard. Since the trellises were permanent and the soil was tough, I decided to temporarily move the soil while I dug to make some room instead of shifting it back and forth. I did put the soil back after I was done digging. Because the soil is harder, it's also more difficult to dig for the roots. The trowel could only hold so much soil, and it was taking forever to move it, so I grabbed a small bucket to make it easier and speed things up. But the bulky bucket didn't always work, especially in tight spots or when there was a sweet potato root in the way. There were plenty of sweet potato roots in this raised bed, and while they were a decent size and length, none were as thick as the one I found in the first container. What made it harder to dig up the potatoes in this container was the hard soil, plus all the sweet potato roots were bunched up against the trellis. I had to break the sweet potato because it got stuck between the two trellis posts and I couldn't pull it out. One thing I learned from planting sweet potatoes is to avoid planting them too close to the trellis or in tight tall planters. If I plant them again next year, I'll use a shallower and wider planter, and I already have one in mind. I moved the camera so you could see the root I was digging. It was much deeper than the other roots and even went past the bottom of the container. I was tempted to leave it, but my determination kicked in and it became a challenge to dig it out. My determination paid off, and in the end, it was easy to pull them out. There might be some roots that went even deeper, but I didn't bother checking. I still had one more container full of soil to dig, and I already had plenty of sweet potatoes. It was fun to see the fruits of my labor, and I've never had this many sweet potatoes before. After digging up the last root in the second planter, I moved to the third one to start digging. I didn't have to dig deep to find the sweet potato roots, which was a relief because I was getting tired of all the digging and pulling. I still had to remove some soil to make it easier to dig them out since they were in clusters, but in the end, I'm happy with what I found. See what I mean by clusters? It's interesting that all the plants in this container grew their roots like this. Did you know that sweet potatoes are a healthy root vegetable? They come in orange, purple, and white varieties. They're naturally sweet and get even sweeter when cooked, especially when roasted or baked, because the starches turn into sugar. They're full of fiber, vitamins, and minerals, making them a great choice for healthy eating. Orange sweet potatoes are rich in beta carotene, which turns into vitamin A in the body, and purple ones have antioxidants called anthocyanins. You can boil, roast, fry, mash, or bake them. Sweet potato fries are a popular dish in restaurants. Since they're naturally gluten free, they're good for people with gluten sensitivities. That was the last of the sweet potato roots. I didn't notice any roots that were deeper than the others, or maybe I just didn't look hard enough because I was already tired, and it was getting late in the afternoon. Plus, I still had to put the soil back in both planters. Before I added the soil back into the planter, I mixed in some leaves and stems from my bean plants. This will help improve the soil for next year's garden. Beans and other plants in the legume family can fix nitrogen in the soil through their roots. By adding their plant material back, it can boost the nitrogen content, which is great for future crops. Just be sure the dead bean plants are free from any diseases or pests before adding them to the soil to avoid introducing any problems into the garden. Chopping them into smaller pieces can also help them break down faster. Here are the sweet potato roots I dug up from the 3 raised beds. I kept the finger-sized ones and made them into sweet potato fries. Unfortunately, I kind of burnt them because I set the timer on the air fryer a little longer than I should have. As for the rest, I'm thinking of making sweetened sweet potatoes to serve with vanilla ice cream for dessert. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Don't forget to click the notification bell to stay updated on the latest videos. Again, thank you and see you next time. Happy gardening!